shall avenge my father and brother.
I will slay you in the name of justice!
Come here! Face me! Cao Cao, you devil! Prepare to die! I fight in the name of justice!
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Nightowl channel. Welcome back to the series where we counted down the top Dynasty Warriors characters as of the latest game. Coming in at number 4, we have the man of justice himself, the splendid Ma Chao.
I fight in the name of justice!
Ma Chao is Ma Tang's eldest biological son and heir, as well as cousin to Ma Dai. He distrusted Cao Cao and rebelled against him at Tong Gate, and when he failed, Ma Chao resented the warlord when his family was executed in retaliation. He lost many more kin and property opposing Cao Cao until he surrendered to Liu Bei. Romance of the Three Kingdoms nicknames him Ma Chao the Splendid in ode to his magnificent armor and stalwart appearance, and after his death he has been dubbed as one of the 5 Tiger Generals. Before we jump into how Ma Chao has changed within the Dynasty Warriors series since its playable debut back in Dynasty Warriors 2, let's take a look at the popularity poll to see why the splendid Ma Chao is up here at number 4. In the first popularity poll, Ma Chao receives 1,634 votes out of a total of over 75,000 votes, putting him in the 12th position. In the second popularity poll, he's going to maintain that same spot at number 12. And then in my personal rankings, Ma Chao is going to jump up to the 4th position. So for me personally, Ma Chao is going to break the top 5 because he's just a really awesome character within the series and within the game, and we'll talk a little bit more about his history and the contrasting personalities that he had within history and the one that he has within the game. But within the game, Ma Chao is this awesome looking character. I mean, he's just a character that I was automatically drawn to just by the way he looks, the way he sounds, the way he fights, and he has a lot of really intense and cool cutscenes that just really adds to the character's personality. So for me, he's always going to be one of my favorite characters within the series. And when we jump into his changes within the games, I'll explain a little bit more about why I like the character so much, but it's pretty self-explanatory when you look at the character, when you use him. He's just a really fun character to play with, especially in the earlier games, and I had a lot of fun using him. His presence and the energy that he radiates within most of the games is very, I guess, splendid. It's very magnificent. It's a very warrior general-esque type presence, and it's just something that I can't really overlook with the character because of what he represents within the game. Now, before we jump into how he's changed within the series, I'll talk a little bit more about Ma Chao for people who don't know. We're going to cover a little bit of his dark past because he is a different character in the game than he is described within history. But this series is about the Dynasty Warriors series, so we're not going to dive too deep into his history, but we are going to talk a little bit about it just to make people aware of it. So like I said, Ma Chao was a Chinese military general and warlord who lived in the Eastern Han Dynasty and early Three Kingdoms period of China. He was a descendant of the general Ma Yuan, and he was the eldest son of Ma Tang. He would go on to form a coalition with Han Sui and other northwestern warlords and revolt against the Han central government, which was led by the warlord Cao Cao. The coalition broke up after losing the Battle of Tong Gate, and Ma Chao initially retreated but later returned to attack and seize control of Liang province by killing the provincial inspector Wei Kong and forcing his subordinates to submit to him. After about a year of Ma Chao starting his uprising, Emperor Jian issued an imperial decree ordering the execution of Ma Chao's family members. In the meantime, Wei Kong's subordinates rebelled against Ma Chao and forced him out of Liang province. He retreated to Hanzhong where he borrowed troops from the warlord Zhang Lu, and he returned to attack Liang province but was ultimately defeated. He would eventually return to Zhang Lu to take shelter, but then when he heard that Liu Bei was fighting for control over Yi province, he would defect to Liu Bei's side and assisted Liu Bei in capturing Yi province. Shortly after joining Liu Bei, Ma Chao would die of an unknown illness at some point in his career. Historians and Ma Chao's contemporaries have a generally negative view of him. Ma Chao was notorious for committing a number of acts of cruelty, including murdering Zhao Ong and Wang Yi's son after they rebelled against him and forced him out of Liang province. So this is what prompts Wang Yi's personality against Ma Chao within the series, because Ma Chao pretty much did the same thing to Wang Yi's family that Cao Cao did to his. So Ma Chao within history wasn't really the nicest person, and it seemed like a lot of his failures and whatever it was he was trying to accomplish came to a halt because of the character that he was within history. Now going back to the game though, Ma Chao was a character that was filled with a warrior's pride. He was a straightforward man who believes in making his future with his own power. He was a firm believer in justice and heroics, and he always declares his intentions in battle for all to hear. While his charisma and honesty wins him followers, his lack of foresight and planning sometimes cost him their trust, as he occasionally neglects to consider others while completing his own personal goals. So within the games, like I said, Ma Chao is one of the coolest characters in the game. games. His personality is really awesome. His weapon style is really cool. His appearance is probably the main draw for the character for most people. When you first see this character, it's like, what the heck is this guy wearing? The armor looks really cool. He just looks like a really compelling character. You just want to know what this character is about. His weapon style in combination with the way he looks just goes so perfectly. And he's always going to be one of my favorites regardless of his historical information. And I've always liked to see Ma Chao's inclusion within the games. He didn't have as much content as I thought he was going to have. Definitely a lot more involved in the earlier games than the later ones. So hopefully they shed more light onto him in the main series. But I've always liked Ma Chao. Like I said, he's one of my favorites. He's always going to be one of my favorites. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump into his changes within the series so I can talk a little bit more about why I like Ma Chao so much. So starting off with his appearance. So his appearance within most of the games is pretty good. The only game that is significantly different is Dynasty Warriors 6. But in most of the games, he has this like dragon-esque armor on him, like this really cool looking armor on him. He looks like a cavalry commander, a knight, a general. He has one of the best appearances within the game. I just like the way he looks, man. He's got this helmet on, he's got usually the white hair that's coming out. He's just stacked, man. He looks like a really stacked character, really intimidating, and it fits with his personal arrivals within the games. He just has that aura. He has that magnanimous look about him, and he's just such a hard character to overlook because he looks so freaking cool. My favorite looks for him are going to probably be Dynasty Warriors 3, Dynasty Warriors 5, and Dynasty Warriors 9. It's really hard to pick a favorite style for him because he looked pretty good in pretty much all the games except for Dynasty Warriors 6. But yeah, his appearance is pretty awesome. Can't complain about the way Ma Chao looks. He's probably one of the like top 10 best looking characters in the game in my opinion. And he'll always be one of my favorites because of the way he looks. Now moving on to his weapon style. So this is also a huge draw for me with the character because the weapon style for Ma Chao is just amazing. In all the games, he pretty much has the same weapon, which is the spear. Except in Dynasty Warriors 6, he still gets a spear, but it's like a clone version, so it's not like his own unique style and everything. But most of the games, he has a spear, and his moveset with his weapon is so freaking awesome. He has one of the most superior movesets within the games with his weapon because the AoE of the weapon for it being so long is just so good. Within Dynasty Warriors 5, he also gets a really OP. I think he's the only character in Dynasty Warriors 5, when you mount a horse, he has like an AoE that comes out of his weapon, like out of the horse that does damage, which is very intriguing to see. But yeah, the weapon style cannot be overlooked with Ma Chao. It just fits his personality so well, and I can't complain about his weapon style really at all. His Musou attacks in all the game are pretty much iconic. Like Dynasty Warriors 3 and through 5 Musou attack, the one where he plants the spear in the ground, he uses it to lift himself up, then he slams back down and then, the spear kind of just whips around him. One of the most iconic Musous in the game. It was always one of my favorites and it always intrigued me because it was just such a cool Musou attack to use. And it's one of my favorite Musou attacks of all time. Dynasty Warriors 6, he just gets the basic clone Musou attack at the time. Dynasty Warriors 7, 8, and 9, the Musou attacks were pretty good. They weren't as good as the classic one, but they brought it back for his ending, for his Rage Musou attack. Dynasty Warriors 7 and 8 was pretty good. I like his poses before he does his attacks. I like the one where he kind of singles out one person and then he kind of like splits into like a shadow self and collapses into the person. That's one's pretty interesting. And then in Dynasty Warriors 9, they combined the two that he had in Dynasty Warriors 7 and 8. But the later Musou attacks were nowhere near as good as the original one. They were still okay. I think they were like okay Musou attacks, but the main draw for that character with that weapon style is definitely that Musou attack. And then just the AoEs with the weapon alone. I really like his EX attack as well. And I like that they brought that back for his knockdown in Dynasty Warriors 9, where he kind of like propels himself forward with a huge kick. And that was pretty fun to use. I enjoyed that. I like the mobility that the character has with that. But yeah, I can't really complain about his weapon style too much. It's one of my favorites. I always, again, love the spears and the staffs and two-handed weapons. So it's no brainer that Ma Chao is one of my favorites when it comes to his moveset. Now moving on to his voice acting. I think overall Ma Chao has really good voice acting. So starting off with Dynasty Warriors 3.
This is our land. We shall protect it.
I thought it fit him pretty well. I always liked the way he sounded in Dynasty Warriors 3. I was never opposed to the way he sounded. It actually kind of added to that magnificent aura, just the way he sounded. He just sounded like he carried himself in a way that was very fitting for the character. Dynasty Warriors 4 is pretty good.
You are not a man of virtue.
Then Dynasty Warriors 5 through 8 was his best one.
I will protect Tongate and all of Guangzhong.
And then he gets a new one in Dynasty Warriors 9.
One time,
Our family was almost totally wiped out.
It does take a step down in Dynasty Warriors 9, but it's not too bad. It still fits him pretty well. I just think the writing for, some of his lines are kind of off. I mean, it fits him, I guess, but it's just weird the way he says it. But for the most part, I generally like the way he sounds. Dynasty Warriors 5 through 8 is probably my favorite Ma Chao voice, and I can't really complain too much about it at all. Now moving on to his significant battles, his relationships, and his death. So starting off with his significant battles, he's only got a few. First one I'm going to mention is the Battle of Hanzhong, and it's his least significant one because the only reason it's significant is because it's Ma Chao's opportunity to get another chance to kill Cao Cao. I don't think any of the games really go over it though. I don't think he has really a special cutscene where he's approaching Cao Cao again. But I want to mention it real quick because that was his last battle with Liu Bei before he ends up passing away. Now moving on to the Battle of Chengdu, or the pacification of Chengdu, when Liu Bei is attacking Yi Province. Important battle for Ma Chao because this is usually where he makes his appearance to the game. This is where he usually comes in at and joins Liu Bei's forces. Either he originally is defending Liu Zhang in the name of justice, of course, but usually by the end of the battle, or some instances like in Dynasty Warriors 9 before the battle, he ends up joining Liu Bei because him and Zhuge Liang can convince Ma Chao that they're doing it all for benevolence and justice and building a world of virtue, which of course is going to ignite Ma Chao's spirit, and he ends up joining Liu Bei from there on. And then finally, his most significant battle is the Battle of Tong Gate. This is Ma Chao's moment. This is his battle within the series, and it's his time to take his opportunity to get after Cao Cao. In most of the games, he is beaten or he's usually thwarted by Zhu Zhu, but a very important battle for Ma Chao because this is his time to really take advantage of the forces he was able to bring together in order to resist Cao Cao. And this is actually one of the harder battles in some of the earlier games as well, because this is where Han Sui usually defects to Cao Cao's side, or results in your morale being dropped, or people end up leaving and defecting more, and it makes the battle that much harder. And it was always an iconic battle for me because of how much I liked Ma Chao, so playing through this battle was always tough, especially going against Ma Chao. He was not an easy person to beat, but very significant battle. It's the most significant battle for Ma Chao because this is what he's really known for within the series. And you really get to see his first proclamation of how much he hates Cao Cao. Now moving on to his relationships and his death. We're gonna talk about his death real quick because it's pretty quick. It's not really mentioned within some of the games, except for maybe Dynasty Warriors 9. They kind of mention it. They just chalk it up to him dying of illness at some point. That's pretty much it. He doesn't die in battle. Wang Yi doesn't get to him. He just ends up dying at some point, and they usually chalk it up to illness. Now, the last part of the video we have is relationships, and the main relationship that he has within the game is going to be with Ma Dai. So Ma Dai is the only, at least within the games, he's the only remaining member of his family after Cao Cao pretty much butchers the entirety of his family. And he has a very close relationship with Ma Dai because they're family, they're cousins, and I'm sure after that event happens, their relationship gets even closer because now, being the only two people left, they're going to want to try and avenge their fallen brethren. But a very close relationship with Ma Dai, very important to Ma Chao to have someone of his family still alive with him. You can really see that Ma Chao cares for Ma Dai deeply, and Ma Dai definitely idolizes and respects Ma Chao, as he usually refers to him as young master, and would do everything in his power to help Ma Chao all the way up until his death. Now moving on to his relationship with Liu Bei. So pretty good relationship that they have with each other. It's not super close or anything, but it's definitely there. Liu Bei definitely recognizes Ma Chao, at least within the games, how benevolent and man of justice and virtue that Ma Chao is within the series, which draws Liu Bei to him, which in turn draws Ma Chao to him, and they're able to come to basically a mutual respect for each other because of the principles that they have. There's something I want to mention really quick. I don't know if it's true, but it's something I read. But sometime after Ma Chao had joined Liu Bei, he started to call his new lord by his style name, which is seen as an act of disrespect. So Guan Yu and Zhang Fei heard Ma Chao was addressing Liu Bei in such a manner and were so outraged that they wanted to kill him. Liu Bei basically said he didn't want any part of it, but it didn't stop them from hiding themselves during the next meeting that Ma Chao had with Liu Bei. With both of them ready to strike them down, if he even uttered his style name once more, Ma Chao wasn't warned, or he couldn't even see the two generals who were hiding, but he was able to understand the situation with one glance at Liu Bei's defeated expression. Therefore, Ma Chao would probably address his lord by his title, and Ma Chao later admitted he instinctively felt like Guan Yu and Zhang Fei's killing intent nearby and correctly guessed the style name to be the cause. Which is a very interesting thing to read about Ma Chao. I don't know how true that is, but if it is, it definitely shows Ma Chao's keenness and the instinctiveness that he has as a person, which is really cool to see. But it really just adds to Ma Chao's indomitable spirit. I mean, he walks into a room and can sense that. That's insane. And it was just a really cool thing to read about. But a very good relationship with Liu Bei, one of mutual respect. Now, moving on to his last few relationships, it's going to be 3 people outside the Wei Kingdom. He has relationships with other people within the Shu Kingdom, but it's very, very minor relationships, not very strong. He also has a mutual friendship with Zhao Yun, as both warriors agree on similar morals and mindsets. But again, their interaction within the game is very limited. They don't really have a lot of interaction with each other, at least within the main series. But the last 3 I want to talk about is relationships with Pang De, Cao Cao, and Wang Yi. I'm gonna start with Wang Yi. Wang Yi and Ma Chao definitely have a hatred relationship with each other. Wang Yi definitely holds a grudge, and that's pretty much her existence within the game, to avenge her family from being slaughtered by Ma Chao. Now, within most of the games, I don't really think it's really known. Ma Chao doesn't really seem to register that Wang Yi, this woman, is like after him. I don't really think Ma Chao really sees that, but it's 100% there. You can see it in Wang Yi's stories, but very minor relationship there. Hopefully they expand on that. Moving on to his relationship with Pang De. Pang De and Ma Chao were friends at one point until, of course, Pang De joined Cao Cao. Back when they were together at Zhiliang, he idolized Pang De, but when he ended up leaving to join Cao Cao, his opinion of Pang De ends up souring due to the betrayal, and he starts to consider Pang De one of his worst enemies. Now, within most of the games, again, it's a similar thing with him and Pang De. They don't have a lot of cutscenes together. There might be a couple instances where they have like special dialogue together, but nothing that really stands out. You can definitely see that's implied. Like, I can see that being implied into Ma Chao's personality and mindset, but it's never explicitly said in any of the games. I don't really see it. It's not really mentioned. And now moving on to his final relationship with Cao Cao, it's definitely one of hatred, but I'm going to say it's almost similar to, Ma Chao and Wang Yi's relationship, where Cao Cao doesn't really register Ma Chao's hatred for him. After the battle of, Tong Gate, when Cao Cao wins, or even in situations after that where Ma Chao's approaching Cao Cao and letting him know, like, hey, you're going to die, it seems like Cao Cao doesn't really register it. He's got, Zhu Zhu, tons of other people around him to protect him from Ma Chao's advances, that after they end up defeating Liu Bei, or after they defeat Ma Chao's, forces, he kind of just drifts into the back of his mindset, and he's not really mentioned at all. He definitely resents Cao Cao, and most of the games, that's what usually drives him in the battles against Cao Cao, is that his opportunity to kill Cao Cao is what his main purpose is within the game. But the relationship is definitely one of hatred. Ma Chao has that burning hatred for Cao Cao, and Wang Yi has that burning hatred for Ma Chao. But that's pretty much all I have for Ma Chao here, guys. One of my favorites. He's going to always be one of my favorites, just based on his appearance and his weapon style alone. And of course, in the name of justice. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have for Ma Chao here, guys. Let me know what you guys think about him down below. One of the top 5 characters. Let me know if you guys like him, if you guys use him, all that good stuff. Just let me know down below. But that's all I have for Ma Chao here, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, definitely appreciate a like, comment, or subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, everyone.